Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here and I'm sorry for having been gone for a while. Some stuff has popped off that I have been busy doing. I'll explain why in a different video, but for now it is time to look once again at transfers and more specifically British record transfers. As I'm sure most of you with even a minor interest in football will be aware, Manchester City paid a British transfer record fee of £100 million to sign Aston Villa talisman Jack Grealish during the summer just gone, triggering his release clause to bring him to the Etihad Stadium. The Englishman has sparkled at times, especially in the 6-3 Champions League win over RB Leipzig, although on other occasions, including the 2-2 draw against Liverpool, he has been relatively anonymous and one-dimensional. However, for today's video, I thought I took a look at what he has for competition when it comes to the players who previously held the British transfer record. I could feasibly go all the way back to 1893 and Willie Groves' £100 transfer from West Brom to Aston Villa, but we'd be here all week if I did so. So instead, I'm just going to cover the signings that broke the record during the Premier League era and grade them based on how good the players in question were, or have been, as signings, taking factors such as performances, impact and potential selling value into account. Grealish will not feature in this video as it is still relatively early days to make an accurate judgment call on his signing, but every other one since 1992 will feature. And if you're going to enjoy this video, slap a like on it and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And without any further ado, here is how I would grade every one of the British record signings that have been made during the Premier League era. Paul Pogba, Juventus to Manchester United, C. Paul Pogba's move to Manchester United 5.5 years ago set a world record, never mind just a British record, of £89 million, overtaking the £85 million fee that Real Madrid paid for Gareth Bale's services in 2013, which was the first time an English team had done so in 20 years. His move brought a lot of fanfare with it, especially given he'd been let go by the Red Devils in 2012 to Juventus for next to nothing and had become one of the old lady's star players as they won 4 straight league titles during his time at Turin. Sadly for United fans, I think it's fair to say that he hasn't really lived up to the hype on a consistent basis. The talent is undeniably there, and Pogba has shown flashes of it on occasion, including against Man City at the Etihad in 2018 when he scored twice to inspire the Red Devils to come back from 2-0 down to win 3-2, and during the opening game of this season against Leeds when he supplied 4 assists. However, he just hasn't been able to tie it all together throughout the entire course of the season, barring perhaps in 2018-19, and injuries and attitude issues have also blighted his time in Manchester, making him almost a permanent substitute in recent times under first Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and then Ralf Rangnick. He was also sent off not long after coming on as a substitute in that horrendous 5-0 thrashing at the hands of Liverpool back in October, which certainly didn't help his cause. So on the balance of things, I think a C is probably just about fair, but let's be real, it should be so much higher. Angel Di Maria, Real Madrid to Manchester United, D. This was a statement signing by United, as even though they had finished 7th the previous campaign under David Moyes, their lowest league position since 1990, the capture of Angel Di Maria, who had just been voted as man of the match in the 2014 Champions League final and had helped Argentina reach the 2014 World Cup final, showed that they still had immense pulling power. It started so promisingly for the diminutive Argentine winger as he scored 3 goals, including a delightful chip against Leicester City, and assisted 6 more in his first 10 Premier League games, ending the campaign with 11 assists in all, the 3rd most in the league that season. However, he struggled to settle in Manchester, something which wasn't helped by his house being burgled in January 2015, and his performances started to wane spectacularly, culminating in him picking up 2 yellow cards in the space of just 2 minutes in United's FA Cup quarter-final loss to Arsenal in March 2015. He has been outspoken about his time there ever since he left the club for £44.6 million to PSG in 2015, stating that he hated the area and that Louis van Gaal was the worst manager he'd ever had in his career. Ultimately, he failed to become the talisman that United, and their fans, had hoped he would become, although external circumstances perhaps beyond his control mean the signing just about gets a D instead of an A. Fernando Torres, Liverpool to Chelsea, C-. During his time at Liverpool, Fernando Torres could feasibly have staked a claim for being in the top 3 strikers on the planet, with his electric pace, attacking movement and clinical finishing making him an Anfield favourite. However, by the time he signed for Chelsea in January 2011, after an extremely protracted transfer saga, the Spaniard had been riddled by persistent injury setbacks that had hampered his game for the previous 18 months or so, and Jamie Carragher said he couldn't believe it when he heard about the £50 million fee that was involved in the deal. It took Torres 3 months to score his first goal for the Blues, and in September 2011, he infamously missed an open goal against Man United at Old Trafford, which was greeted by the biggest cheer of the day, despite United scoring 3 goals in that game. He never came close to his Liverpool peak and only scored 45 goals across 3.5 years at the club, although one of them was the decisive strike against Barcelona in the Champions League semi-final in April 2012 to send Chelsea through to the final, which they ultimately ended up winning on penalties against Bayern Munich. Some fans could argue that the goal was worth the £50 million on its own, but overall I think it's hard to say that Torres fully justified the price tag, so I think a C- is about right. Andy Carroll, Newcastle to Liverpool, E. Andy Carroll's move to Liverpool as a replacement for Torres went through just before the Spaniard's deal was confirmed, meaning that the £35 million fee involved was perhaps the shortest lived British record of all time. Carroll was a part of the double deal for the Reds as they also signed Luis Suarez on the same day, but despite costing £12.2 million fewer, it would be the Uruguayan who would have a much greater impact at Anfield, even if Carroll did not just FA Cup semi-final winner against Merseyside rivals Everton. The Geordie target man had struck 11 times in the first half of the Premier League campaign for Newcastle, including a bullet from 30 yards out against the Reds in December 2010, but £35 million seemed excessive at the time, and so it proved. He would only score 11 goals across 18 months at Anfield, with just 6 of them coming in the league, in spite of playing nearly 60 games, and his style of play never really seemed to click with the Reds' system. In the summer of 2012, he was loaned out to West Ham, who made the move permanent the next year for £15 million, and the hefty loss combined with Carroll's performances mean this transfer was an abject failure. At least Suarez turned out well. Robinho, Real Madrid to Manchester City, C. I have to address the elephant in the room before beginning this segment, and that is of course that Robinho is quite literally a convicted rapist and may soon be on Interpol's most wanted list as he's yet to serve his prison sentence. But even though he committed one of the most heinous crimes known to mankind, it will not affect his grade that I give him for his time at Man City here. Just thought I'd give that disclaimer before beginning this segment. In terms of image and the statement it made to the wider world, Robinho's transfer to Manchester City on deadline day in the summer of 2008 is arguably the best in this list, as it showed that, after Sheikh Mansour's Abu Dhabi group purchased the club, City well and truly meant business. Touted as the next Pele by the man himself while at Santos, the pacey and tricky Brazilian was originally on the verge of signing for Chelsea from Real Madrid, but nouveau riche Manchester City wanted to sign someone significant to flex their new financial might. Robinho proved to be that man for a British record fee of £32.5 million after the move to Stamford Bridge fell through, although he said in his first press conference that he was happy to sign for Chelsea, which didn't exactly bode well. In his first season, he scored a respectable 14 league goals, including a beautiful free kick on his debut, which just so happened to be against Chelsea, and a lob against Arsenal in a 3-0 win. However, he failed to become the main man at Eastlands as many had hoped, with his second season being dogged by injuries and allegations of laziness and ill discipline. After a loan stint back at Santos, he moved to AC Milan in 2010 for under half of what City paid for him, but the signing showed that the citizens had significant pulling power even at that early stage, so it goes up to a C as a result, in spite of his lackluster performances on the pitch, especially in his second season, and poor selling value when they came to sell him. Andriy Shevchenko, AC Milan to Chelsea, E. Despite Ukrainian hotshot Andriy Shevchenko's obvious talents, this signing was a rather bizarre one from the get-go. Chelsea manager Jose Mourinho made it very clear that he didn't want to sign Shevchenko, with Didier Drogba his preferred man up front in his one-striker system. That didn't stop a nearly 30-year-old Shevchenko being signed, allegedly on the sole orders of Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich, for over £30 million from AC Milan back in 2006. He never clicked into gear whilst contracted to the Blues, playing the full 90 minutes on just 8 occasions and scoring just 9 goals in the league across his 2 seasons at the club. After a failed loan spell back at the San Siro during the 2008-09 campaign, he returned to his first club, Dynamo Kiev, on a free transfer, and that combined with his poor performances on the pitch gives him an E grade in my opinion. Rio Ferdinand, Leeds to Manchester United, A-star. The first signing in this video, which I consider to be a bona fide success, which does say quite a lot in fairness. Rio Ferdinand moved to Manchester United in 2002 for what was then a world record deal for a defender of £29.3 million, but in spite of the lofty fee, he proved to be an absolute bargain. A centre-back who was pacey, elegant on the ball and intelligent in the pass, Ferdinand did take a couple of seasons to fully get going, as his start to life at Old Trafford was hampered by injuries and then an 8-month ban for missing a drugs test in September 2003. From 2004 to 2013 though, Ferdinand was one of the most accomplished defenders in the world, and when he was partnered with Nemanja Vidic, their complementing styles provided the backbone for a dominant United team. His trophy cabinet is stacked from the 12 years he spent with the Red Devils, including 6 league titles and the Champions League, and he was voted into the PFA Team of the Year on 5 separate occasions, including 3 seasons in a row between 2006-07 and 2008-09, coincidentally enough, when United won a hat-trick of Premier League titles. He left the club in 2014 as a legend. Juan Sebastian Veron, Lazio to Manchester United. D. Signed 1 year before Ferdinand, Juan Sebastian Veron was undoubtedly one of the most talented midfielders of his generation, but unfortunately, things just didn't really work out for him at Old Trafford. The Argentine moved for £28.1 million from Lazio in 2001 and had an instant impact, picking up the Premier League Player of the Month award for September 2001, and Sir Alex Ferguson was so desperate to incorporate him into his system that he changed from his tried and trusted 4-4-2 formation to a 4-5-1. However, United's 4-man midfield of David Beckham, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes and Roy Keane worked wonders as a quartet and didn't look like slowing down, and as a result, they switched back to the 4-4-2 and Veron was slowly phased out. His passing range and technical ability on the ball was still something to behold whenever he played, especially on the more languid European stage, which suited him much more than the rugged and combative nature in the Premier League at the time. However, despite constant defences of Veron by Ferguson in the media, including one famous expletive-laden rant in 2002 at a journalist who questioned the Argentine's place in the United side, the move ultimately didn't turn out to be successful, and he left for Chelsea in 2003 for just over half of his original £28.1 million fee, meaning that I think a D grade is pretty much on the nail. Ruud van Nistelrooy, PSV to Manchester United. B. Despite Ruud van Nistelrooy's obvious goal-scoring talents, which he showcased on a weekly basis for Manchester United, this is still a difficult transfer to assess when taking other factors into account. United had originally agreed to sign him from PSV in 2000, but following a month out with an injury to his knee, he missed his medical before suffering an anterior cruciate ligament injury, which ruled him out for a year. The transfer finally went through in April 2001, and Van Nistelrooy immediately made up for lost time, netting 20 or more goals in 4 of his 5 seasons at Old Trafford, including bagging 44 in 2002-03 alone, the year in which he broke a Premier League record by scoring in 10 consecutive games, which stood until Jamie Vardy superseded it in 2015. However, his style of play of not really doing much besides goal scoring wasn't always compatible with United's style of play, as many former players, including Gary Neville, have openly said in the media, and his 5-year stint there coincided with the club winning just 1 league title alongside a solitary FA Cup and a solitary League Cup. After being dropped for the League Cup final in 2006, Ruud fell out of favour with Sir Alex Ferguson and was moved on to Real Madrid that summer for €14 million. In all, he was undoubtedly an excellent player for United based on what he was good at doing, scoring goals, but it tied in with their worst spell under Ferguson during the Premier League era, and perhaps whilst not entirely his fault, the system just didn't really work with him all that well. So with that taken into account, I can't really give the move much higher than a B, but admittedly I do still think that is quite harsh. Rio Ferdinand, West Ham to Leeds, A-. The first, but not the last player, to feature in this video twice, Rio Ferdinand became a part of Leeds' lavish spending project in November 2000 when he moved to Yorkshire from West Ham for £18 million. He immediately became a regular fixture, helping the club reach the semi-finals of the 2000-2001 Champions League and receiving his first PFA Team of the Year inclusion in 2001-02, captaining the club during that season and developing into the force that he would eventually become at Manchester United. However, when it became apparent that Leeds' bubble was about to burst spectacularly owing to spending well beyond their means and failing to reach the Champions League for 2 straight seasons, players were sold at a rapid rate in order to raise funds. Ferdinand led the exodus with his aforementioned move to Old Trafford for £29.3 million, apparently waiting for 6 hours in Chairman Peter Ridsdale's office so that the deal could be finalised. Although while he was at the club, he impressed immensely and did what he could to aid the fast-sinking ship, so I think A- is fair. Alan Shearer, Blackburn Rovers to Newcastle United, A+. After 4 extremely successful years at Blackburn, Alan Shearer chose to sign for his hometown club in the summer of 1996 over Manchester United to link up with his childhood hero Kevin Keegan, who was managing Newcastle at the time. The fee was a world record £15 million, equivalent to £28.88 million today, but he thrived under the pressure and was more than worth the price tag. Capable of scoring all types of goals from free kicks and long-range volleys to tap-ins and bullet headers, Shearer became a deity amongst Newcastle fans, and in February 2006, he eclipsed Jackie Milburn's record to become the Magpies' all-time top goal scorer with his 201st goal for the club, retiring that summer on 206. He didn't win any trophies during his time at St James's Park, with 2 FA Cup finals the closest he would come, meaning that he doesn't quite get the top marks. However, the record goal scorer of the Premier League era is immortal to Newcastle fans, and rightly so, and an average of more than 23 goals a season across 10 campaigns ain't bad going. Stan Collymore, Nottingham Forest to Liverpool, B-. Stan Collymore was one of Britain's hottest strikers in the mid-1990s, as he hit 22 goals in his debut Premier League campaign for Nottingham Forest, and although Manchester United looked like they would sign him in January 1995, they instead moved for someone else, who we will cover very soon. Collymore therefore remained at Forest until the end of the season when Liverpool swooped in to secure his signature for £8.5 million, and he formed a fantastic partnership with Robbie Fowler up front, scoring 14 and assisting 12 in his debut campaign, including the winner in that famous 4-3 victory over Newcastle. 12 goals and 6 assists the following season was another good return, but the emergence of a teenage Michael Owen deemed Collymore surplus to requirements in the eyes of manager Roy Evans, and he switched to his boyhood club Aston Villa for £7 million. All in all, it was a good signing by Liverpool, but Collymore might have felt slightly aggrieved that he wasn't given more than 2 seasons to show what he could do at Anfield, and the club did make a noticeable loss on the forward, certainly by the standards of the time, so I'll go with a B-. Dennis Bergkamp, Inter Milan to Arsenal, A*. Apparently, this deal went through just before the signing of Collymore did, perhaps only a matter of days, but whilst the other short-lived record signing in this video, namely Andy Carroll, was a huge flop, Dennis Bergkamp was the exact opposite of that. One of the silkiest players to ever grace English football, the Iceman was calm on the ball, had a deft touch, and possessed a passing range to rival anyone in the last 30 years or so. He formed a brilliant partnership with Thierry Henry upon the French's arrival at Highbury in 1999, scoring 113 and assisting 97 in 414 games, as well as winning 3 Premier Leagues and 4 FA Cups for the Gunners. What's more, he holds the distinction of being the only player to receive the top 3 spots of the Goal of the Month competition in a single month, that coming in August 1997, and he scored perhaps the best goal of the Premier League era in 2002, when he controlled a lofted ball around Newcastle defender Nikos Dabizas, turned him brilliantly, probably ending his career in the process, and slotted home. That goal, perhaps the epitome of how talented Bergkamp was, probably warrants an A on its own, but the non-flying Dutchman's overall contributions to making Arsenal a domestic and global force make this transfer worthy of an A*, and he retired in 2006 as a club legend with a statue immortalising him outside the Emirates Stadium. Andrew Cole, Newcastle to Manchester United, A-. This was one of the first seismic transfers of the Premier League era, as Andrew Cole, who had scored 34 goals for Newcastle the previous season, alongside making 13 assists, was sold by the Magpies to title rivals Manchester United for £7 million plus Keith Gillespie, almost out of the blue. Disgruntled fans crowded outside St James's Park to protest against the move, leading to manager Kevin Keegan having to speak to those fans to justify the decision. It proved to be savvy business for United, as Cole struck up a fantastic partnership with Dwight Yorke and guided the Red Devils to 5 Premier Leagues, 2 FA Cups and the Champions League in 1999, scoring 121 goals in 275 games, as well as notching up 48 assists. His stint at Old Trafford did peter out when the likes of Teddy Sheringham, with whom Cole had a long-standing feud, and Ruud van Nistelrooy were signed by the club, and he was sold to Blackburn in December 2001, but it was for a £1 million profit, albeit not when taking inflation into account, so I think an A- is justified. Chris Sutton, Norwich to Blackburn, B-. In terms of short-termism, this might well be the best transfer on the list, as the season that Chris Sutton joined Blackburn, he and his strike partner Alan Shearer formed a legendary SAS partnership to guide Blackburn to the league title, with Sutton bagging 15 of the 49 goals that the pair scored that season. His 25 goals for Norwich in 1993-94 had convinced Blackburn to snap him up, but after his stellar 1994-95 campaign, he was frequently injured and failed to score a single goal the following campaign. After Shearer and Mike Newell's departures in 1996, Sutton was once again the club's main striker, but although he won a Golden Boot in 1997-98 with 18 goals, he couldn't prevent Rovers' slide from Premier League champions in 1995 to relegation in 1999, scoring just 3 times in that relegation campaign. That didn't deter Chelsea from snapping him up for £10 million that year, meaning Rovers doubled their money on the striker, and that combined with the title win resulting in receiving a B- in spite of Blackburn's fall, which I think, to be fair, he didn't really contribute to all that much. Roy Keane, Nottingham Forest to Manchester United, A star. For my money, this is the best Premier League era British record signing to date. In the summer of 1993, Roy Keane looked all set to sign for Blackburn, but an administrative error led to Alex Ferguson swooping in at the last minute and stealing him from under Rovers' noses. They triggered his £4 million relegation release clause following Forest's relegation from the Premier League in 1993, and Keane became the beating heart of the United midfield, working in tandem with the likes of Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs and David Beckham to create one of the best midfield forwards of all time, and certainly one of the most successful. Appointed captain in 1997, his hard-man image does get in the way of his modern-day reputation somewhat, but Keane was a fearless, energetic, but also technically brilliant midfielder who lifted the performances of those around him and inspired United to a multitude of trophies, including 6 Premier Leagues and the Champions League in 1999. It was his display in the semi-final of that competition against Juventus, widely cited as one of the greatest individual performances of all time, that guided United through to that final, even though he missed the game owing to a yellow card suspension. Although his time there ended acrimoniously, following an interview scathing his teammates after they lost 4-1 to Middlesbrough, which never aired, in 2005, without Roy Keane, I doubt United would have experienced the same levels of success that they did. A star, come on, it's pretty obvious. Alan Shearer, Southampton to Blackburn in 1992, A star. The man who runs Roy Keane closest in terms of the best transfers in this video is one of the many players with whom the Irishman had a rivalry, and that player is, of course, Alan Shearer. Upon promotion to the Breakaway League's debut campaign, Blackburn owner Jack Walker splashed the cash to ensure that Rovers would compete at the top almost immediately, and his most signature signing was that of Southampton marksman Shearer for £3.5 million, meaning that he is only the second player, alongside Rio Ferdinand, to have broken the transfer record twice during the Premier League era. The Geordie proved to be worth every penny and then some, smashing home 130 goals in just 171 games for the club, including 112 in 138 in the league alone, guiding Rovers to a Premier League title in 1995 with 34 league goals that season. What's more, when the time came to sell him in 1996, it was for that aforementioned £15 million world record deal to Newcastle, more than quadruple on their initial investment, so I have to give this signing an A star as well, albeit a slightly lower A star than Keane's. And that just about concludes today's video on how I would grade every Premier League era British record transfer, barring Jack Grealish. If you think I got any of them wrong, let me know why down in the comments below. I'll be really interested to hear what you have to say. If you enjoyed this video, of course, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and ring the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a video straight away. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.